Okay, we are there learning the Amud Yudches Amud Aleph. New Mishnah on Shabbos. We finished up to the Mishnah, and now we have the third Mishnah of the first parak of Yoma. So what did we learn so far? We learned 7 days before. We're Mafrishan, I say. We put him to Lishkas Bahedrin. The second Mishnah told us that he is married himself with the Avodah for the 7 days. And now the Mishnah says, Masrulay Zakanim Mizikne Bezdin. The Zakanim would gift him from the elders of Bezdin. V'kovin lefanav b'seder hayom. And they would read before him the Seder Hayom. Rashi says, Parshas Achimos. They would do this for all 7 days, Rashi says. V'aimrim, they would say to him, Ishi Kohen Gadol. Ishi is a title. Adoni, Rashi says, my master, Kohen Gadol. Kra ato b'ficha. You read it yourself with your mouth. Shema shachachta, perhaps you have forgotten it. Or shema leila ma'adita, or maybe you never learned what to do for the avodah. Now, somebody makes a point that why do you, like, if you're reading it for him, why does he have to read it himself? And from this mission, we see that reading things yourself help you remember it better. Erev Yom Kippur. All right, now we're up to Erev Yom Kippur. Shachris. In the morning, we stand him in the eastern gate. And we would pass in front of him parim, cows, ve'elim and rams, ukvasim and sheep. In order that he recognize and be familiar. The idea being that this is like another learning tool, is that now that he can see what he's doing, it'll help him remember what he has to do for each one. Each one will go in front of him, and he'll remember what he has to do to each of these animals. Rashi says, he'll think about the animals that are passing in front of him. To pay attention all 7 days. They wouldn't hold back any food or drink from the Kohen Gadol. But as it got close to dark, they would not let him eat too much. Because eating brings on sleep. And we didn't want him to become a Balkari, so we didn't want him sleeping. I understand you want to tell me he should read it himself because maybe he forgot it. Listen, it's been a year since he did it. So that makes sense. El Shema Lamad. Perhaps he didn't learn. Are we going to put up, are we going to point a Kohen Gadol who doesn't know anything? Vatani learned in a Brisa. V'agoyin hagadol me'ochiv. The Pasuk says the Kohen that is, we call him the Kohen Gadol, but the Pasuk says he is the Gadol me'ochiv. He is greater from his brothers. And what does that mean, says the Brisa? Shehi Gadol me'ochiv in 4 things. Number 1, B'koyach, in strength. B'noi, in beauty. He had to be quite handsome and strong. B'chachma, in wisdom. Uva'isha, in wealth. And acher ma'imrim, others say, Minayin shem'ein eloi. If he's not wealthy, she'achiv ha'kahanim megadol, I say. His fellow kahanim have to megadol him, have to raise him up. Wow. So the point, L'chera, is that he was gadol. The reason why we're bringing this is that if he had to be gadol and b'chachma, so this Kohen Gadol had to be a chacham. So what do you mean? He never learned the achrimais. He never learned Mizachlis Yoma. What kind of gadol me'achav is he? Rav Yosef says like Hasha. Kam b'mikdash rishon, kam b'mikdash sheni. Wow. We're discussing which Beis HaMikdash. In the first Beis HaMikdash, you're right. The Kohen Gadol was Gadol me'achiv b'kach b'noi b'chachma ba'isha. But in the Mikdash Sheni, it was not so. And I can prove it to you. Because the Kohen, we already learned that the Kohen Gadol, that the Kohen Gadolship was transferred. But here we don't bring that as a right. I'm not sure why. The Gemara instead brings the Amar of Asi, Tarkava de Dinri. It's a tray and a kav. It's 3 kav of dinri, of dinare, which were golden coins. Aila, 3 kav of golden coins. Aila le Marta bas Baisus. Marta bas Baisus paid to Yane Malka I'll do ukme Yeshua ben Gamla b'kani Ravavi, so that Yeshua ben Gamla should become the Kohen Gadol. So you see that this was something that was able to be purchased. Now, if you take a look at the bottom of the Tesis Yeshanim, at least on my Gemara, it's on the bottom of the page, in the first column of the Tesis Yeshanim, right in the middle, in bold, you have the word Marta. So Tesis Yeshanim fills us in some information who this was. Marta Basbaisis, Rashi also says, my bad, he fills in some other things though. Rashi says first, Almana Ashira Haisa, she was a wealthy widow. Vikitcha re Yeshua ben Gamla, and Yeshua ben Gamla married her. V'nes namaman leYanei HaMelech, and she gave money to Yanei, uminu liyas Kohen Gadol, and she appointed him, and he appointed Yeshua ben Gamla to be the Kohen Gadol. Now, back to the Tesis Yeshanim, he quotes Rashi, that Amana Ashira Haisa Vikitcha Yeshua Kodim Shnismana. It had to be obviously before he was a Kohen Gadol. He married her because a Kohen Gadol can't marry a Almana. Ve'akach nisman aliyas Kohen Gadol. He was appointed to be Kohen Gadol coming near Yomas. Adu kimte Yeshua ben Gamla. Ve'avu bisha choshev hoya. He was very choshev Yeshua ben Gamla. K'vei ashchan lekamalek. We'll see later on. Shasta shnei geloris shel something of zav mazkir neisa the shvach. The Gemara mentions him. That's he was the Yeshua ben Gamla is accredited with making the public school system, making a school system that all children should be able to get an education. Which is also an interesting point. My uncle Moshe Hauer Zatzal would remind people that the school system which we have was created for people who could not pay tuition. That's what it was created for. Yeshua ben Gamla made the school system because there were kids. If you're a wealthy person or you're a Talmid Chacham, so you taught your son yourself, like the pasuk says, or you'd hire someone to. But if someone was an alma, a yasam, or someone was poor, it was an amaretz and couldn't afford to pay for somebody, so he wouldn't get an education. So Yeshua ben Gamla instituted that a school system in every town. You'd be able to learn whether you could afford it or not. That's who the schools are for. Mikamakim on the bottom of the page. So Tesis Sham's kasha is, why did he have to pay to get in? He was Adam Chashav. It seems like he was appropriate for him to be the Kohen Gadol. Mikamakim hayu bali teira v'chashuv mimenu. There are others that were more appropriate to appoint to be Kohen Gadol. And Marta Bas Baisus paid off Yanei to appoint him to be the king. Now, Taisa has an interesting point here. He's like, 1 second, wasn't Yanei HaMelech the Kohen Gadol also? So Taisa says, Ain't a Yanei HaMelech. This is not the Yanei HaMelech we're familiar with. That the Gemara tells us, Shaharak Chachmei Yisrael, that he killed most of the Chachmei Yisrael except for Shimon ben Shatach, who was his brother-in-law. The Huda Hassan Kohen Gadol have it, because that one was actually a Kohen Gadol himself. And not only was he king, he was Kohen Gadol. The Kamara Hakim Lahem Bitzitz Shebeinei Nechav V'Loi Hayimemana Achav Mukayme. It doesn't make sense that he would point somebody else. So Tesis seems to say that there are two Yanais. Okay. Says the Gemara weiter. Tana, back to Erev Yom Kippurim Shachris. So now we mentioned in the Mishnah Parim, Elam, and Kvasim. Says the Gemara Tana Apa Seirim. Remember, there were two Seirim, that was Sir Zazal and Sir Lashem. So why weren't they listed in the Mishnah? V'tani Didan my time Tana Seirim. Why does an hour Tana mention Seirim? Says the Gemara Kivin the Al Chet Ka'asu. Since they're coming on a Chet, that's the Chet of Klal Yisrael. Chol Shadaite. That'll cause him too much heartache. So therefore we don't. He's Chol Shadaite because he doesn't know if he's going to be able to do a good job and bring a kapara for all of Klal Yisrael's sins. In fact, well, the par also comes for a Chet. That's for him and his household and the Kehanim. So Gemara says, "Parak even the olav al achiv kehanim huda asi." So that comes for him and his family and his fellow kehanim. So ba'achiv kehanim Ika inish the Isbe Melsa Meda Yadale. Listen to this. If there was a Kohen who had something wrong about him, so then the Kohen Gadol would know about it. Umahadle b'tshuva, and he would get him to do tshuva. So he was confident when he would bring the par, he would be able to atone for his family. He took a chraya. Wow, what an achrayas the Kohen Gadol took. Talk about a mashkiach, who knows his talmidim, and they felt comfortable coming to him and telling him what he did wrong, and he'd be mahadle b'tshuva. The Kuli Yisrael, Yada, but the whole Jewish people, he didn't know. So if he would receive the Seirim, it would cause him a tremendous heartache because he wouldn't be able to bring all of Klal Yisrael to Tshuva. Interesting. That was really, I guess, the Kohen Gadol's responsibility was to get Klal Yisrael to the Tshuva, so he'd be able to effect an atonement, a kapara for them. Amar Ravina, Hainu de Amriinchi. This is a saying that people say, Ibar achitrich daila havi. If your nephew is works for the government, chazi b'shuka kamela tachlef. If you see him in the market, find a different route, because he knows what you're worth, he knows what you're hiding, and he'll figure out a way to get it out of you. So you want to stay away from him. What does that have to do with our Gemara? I guess in the Kud is Rashi says mitach shoyem machkircha mitchila bakihu ba'ishracha. He knows what you're worth, and what you do. He'll figure out a way to collect from you. So I guess the Kohen Gadol knew his family, so he would figure out ways to be able to get them to do tshuva. Great. So for 7 days he was able to eat how he liked to eat. But on Erev Yantif already they would start holding him, not give him so much food. Tanya Yehuda Nakusa Imer. He had a different formula. They would feed him flour and eggs in order to clean out his system. That would cause him to have shilshul, and this way he wouldn't need to use the bathroom. Amrulai, they said to him, he said, that's not a great idea. That is going to be mar bezera. Chima means it'll warm up Rashi says, shall carry, it'll make him be a balkari. Shall siltes ubeitzim marim esazera. Flour and eggs increase sperm. So that's not a good idea. You don't want to feed him that. You're right, I'll clean him out, but you're going to have another issue. Tanya, we learned in a brayso, Sumcha Seimer, Amar Mishum Reb Meir, Sumcha said the name of Reb Meir, Ein Machilin Oisei, Loi Abi, V'loi, V'amri Loi Ababi. Okay, what are these things? V'yezhem Avlayayin Lovin, also not red wine, right wine. So what are these things? So the Gemara is going to tell us. There are abbreviations. 4, Loi Abi, that's don't feed him Esrog, Loi Beitzim, Loi Yayin Yoshan. Okay, that's a B. The Yeshemim, another base, Af, the Amilo le Avavi, le Esrig le Beitzim, le Basar Shamin, they include in their fatty meat, le Yain Yashin, the Yeshemim, and not old wine, and others say also not white wine. Why? If they Shayain Lavan, maybe Esa Adam Lidetuma. White wine causes a person to become a Balkari, I guess. All these things, I guess, are things that are Machamim. And or ma'bezera, and can cause someone to become a balkari. So we don't want that happening to the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur. Says the Gemara, Tarabat, Zav. Now, a Zav is somebody who had an emission from his Aver, but it's not Keri. Take a look at Rashi. Zav, Toilun Levimeichel, will assume if he ate certain food that's why he had an emission, and that's not going to make him tummy. Remember, a balkari goes to the mikvah and he becomes tar. A zav, that means he sees 2 or 3 more emissions. That's not carry. That's something else. Then he becomes tavi for 7 days, and he's got to bring a carbon when he by his tar. That's a zav. So I'm achal Michael Harbe. Mikol min shu toilen. If he's going to eat a lot of foods from the types of foods we're going to mention, so then what we're going to say is, even if he sees an emission, even ula carbon. He's not going to be a zav for tumah shiva and a carbon. Rashi says the chsiv b'sarai v'loy machmas einsei. It's got to be something that's natural and not come because of an einus. And if it's because he ate too much food, that's considered an einus. Of a ba'keri, tummy ba'einus. A ba'keri will become tummy ba'einus. The ein keri v'zay bam makam echad doesn't come from the same place. Ve'in mareim shava, and they are not. They don't look the same. Shahazoiv doima lemei batzik. That's like a watery dough. Shel sa'irin. So if you had a watery barley dough, ve'inei kosher, and it's kosher means that it's like connected. It's like thick. Ella rather keluban beitza hamuzeres. It looks like the white of an egg that has been fertilized. The shechvazera and sperm is kosher. It's tight together. Keluban beitza she'ina muzeres, and looks like the white of an egg that has not been fertilized. Okay. So now, what did we bring this brisa for? Turn Rabbanan. Zav. When it comes to zav teilen b'maychol, we could be Taylor. We can hang onto the fact that the food is what caused him to become a zav. Michael and any type of food. We don't feed him. This is when we're maybe dikasei. It's talking about a zav when we're checking him out to see if he's a zav or not. If he's going to have another re'iyah, don't feed him like chagvi v'leich gavam. What's that? Like called varm, and nothing that brings him to tumah. What are these things? Like chavi, so that's like chalav, gavina, like beitza, like ayin, milk, cheese, eggs, and wine. Like gavam is make grease and shalpul, that is a bean, split pea maybe. Ubas or shamin fatty meat. Umairis is like a pickled small fish, maybe like herring. Nothing that brings tumah. What is that? And coming to include to include these things. There are 5 things that bring a person to tumah. The Elohein, and these are they: hashum, garlic, hashachlayim, chalagloides, beitzim, and greer. So, what are these things? They are shachlayim is cress, chaloigloigos is purslane, looks like a lettuce. Beitzim are eggs, and gargir is arugula. Okay, Mirz Hashem, we shall continue tomorrow.
Yay, finally.
That's pretty fast.
Not fast. We were just talking really fast. I don't understand. Now you need to put on the thingy.